One Piece is a manga and anime that easily ranks as one of my favorite of all time, and not just in that media of like any case of like video games, movies, TV shows, anything. It's one of my top. There's something special about One Piece, and I think it starts kind of with the way the world is laid out. Because I always never wanted to get into One Piece because I like saw it as a series that went on with no ending, and that's like kind of the opposite of what I like in like anime and manga. Because I think an ending is what makes a series great. For example, like Mob Psycho. Season 1, fantastic. Season 2, even better. And some people like didn't see a reason for season 3, but it gave such closure on the characters and everything that it made the series perfect for me that I can easily say it's in one of my top 10 alongside One Piece. So I never wanted to watch One Piece because that is kind of what the barrier to stopping me was. It had tons of episodes and it never seemed like it was going to end. But with the way the islands are laid out, you kind of get separate stories. And everything is so different between island to island because it's different seasons, cultures, everything is just wildly different on the Grand Line. And it makes it for such great storytelling. Because Oda can have, like, Thriller Bark, which is, like, a crazy, like, Halloween themed arc. And then you can have, like, Whole Cake Island, which is, like, it's island's made of, like, food and candy and shit. It's crazy. And then we have Luffy, who's a great protagonist, but I think the more interesting part is that we know he's looking for a crew since the very beginning. And getting to each new island, meeting each new crew member along the way is something so special. And it gives such a good reason to like love each part of the series more because you think back and like Chopper is from Drum Island, so it gives you reason to love that arc even more because that's where he's from. Or Water 7 with Frankie. And it kind of interconnects the world back and forth and gives you like want to see those characters again, reason to bring back characters, and it interconnects the world in a very special way that I think most series cannot do. And kind of in line with that, I think one of Oda's strong suits is flashbacks. And it works even better in the One Piece world because take for example the Fishman Island flashback. It interconnects all the way back to Arlong Park with Arlong, and then we get Jinbei knowing him, and it made that arc so much better because we also knew Hachi, and then we also had the case of Nami, and everything that happened in Sabaody is coming back into play, and with Nami and Jinbei, and it just no other series does that. Most flashbacks, like even I love flashbacks in almost every series that have them. It's some of my favorite parts of the series. But usually doesn't interconnect as crazily as it does in One Piece. Like almost anytime we see anything, it links back to somewhere. The flashback we got in Wano linked to so much of the world because we got to see how Roger was at Skypiea, how he was able to write in the language of the poneglyphs, and it also linked to Zoe with the minx, and we just got we get so many answers in a flashback usually. And one of the great things about One Piece is just like all the lore and world building is kind of what draws people in. And you don't usually when we get an answer, we get more questions. But with the series nearing its end, I in Final Saga, so probably fucking 10 years with the way it goes, but and the fact that we're on an island with Vegapunk finally, someone who almost every single arc we heard about. And then like we have the Whitebeard, or not Whitebeard, sorry, Blackbeard and Luffy that are like both on their own journeys separately, and like they show up and meet each other, but like there's never been like a real big conflict between them. It's kind of them on their own stories, because we see the impact of not only the Straw Hats crew on the world, but also every other character's impact on the world. And it always feels like it's a moving parts, and it like never stops. Like while we're doing one thing, there's always other things that are going on, and then after an arc ends, usually we like go around the world and like check on everything, and that's some of the best parts of One Piece. Also, the strong people we've met in the early arcs are still strong people in the world. Like, take for instance Mihawk. We get introduced to him so early in this story, and he is still that strong of a character. It's not like he's been nerfed to hell or he just doesn't exist anymore. And even if a character gets beaten by the Straw Hats, or gets like shows up in an arc and then shows up later, it doesn't mean they're that strength anymore, because they were doing their own thing in the world. Like Law was one of my favorite characters before I even knew about One Piece, because I had played him in other games before, and I had seen stuff about him. I loved his power. His voice actor is awesome. He's probably my favorite design in the entire series. I like absolutely love him. And like he shows up at Sabaody for the first time, and then he shows up at the end of Marineford. Like we just get little bits of him, and then he doesn't show up until like later in Punk Hazard, and just we get to hear about his exploits and like what's been going on with them. And One Piece is also a series where like it has such a unique power system. The Devil Fruits are awesome. They consistently have a downside of the sea, and it's like a real downside because they're all pirates on the ocean. And it's like still fun to see new Devil Fruits and what can be done. And like they also like get passed on when you die, so like you get to see them with other characters, and sometimes in flashbacks you get to see Devil Fruits, and it's just crazy. But we also have hockey, which I know some people aren't as big of a fan of, but I love the way it was like slowly introduced as like not just one power system. It was like other people in the world figured stuff out separately and kind of had their own powers, but it was just hockey. Like in Wano, it's slightly different. They like call it Rio or whatever. And then in Skypiea, they called it Mantra. And we get to see like even like the Straw Hats do it without knowing they're doing it. And then we get to meet the Kuja clan with their hockey, where we actually learn the term hockey. And like before we even like know about it, like we see Shanks walking on the crew. It's just like awesome the way it's been slowly introduced into the world, and it does kind of like take away from Devil Fruits in a part, but I think they coexist in a very great way. And I think when we get Gear 5, that is like, as Luffy says it, the peak of that. Because yes, his Devil Fruit is crazy and like OP, but in the world of One Piece, he also needs crazy hockey to be strong, and that's just like the way of the world. And it's like we always saw that. It wasn't something that was like, some people like see it as like post time skip, it just randomly got introduced, but it was something we were seeing along the entire way. It's also a series that doesn't just focus on the fighting, which I feel like a lot of shonens end up doing, and it kind of ruins their story. Almost always the story comes first in One Piece, and it also still feels like an adventure series, which like Dragon Ball was one of my like favorite things about Dragon Ball, but it was lost so quickly. One Piece still has that feel, and it's satisfying. It's also not afraid to be as goofy as it was in the first episodes. Like, that has not been something that's lost, which some people aren't a fan of, but I feel like if you made it that far in the series, I feel like that's what One Piece has always been. So, it's part of the charm, and one of the things I love about the series. It can be so goofy, but have such serious messages, tones, and, like, emotions. Like, Annie's Lobby, Arlong Park, just, like, there's Thriller Bark, even, like, usually most flashbacks in general are just, like, so serious and, like, have such great emotional value still. But at the same time, it's still goofy as hell, and it's still One Piece. Like, it still gives characters their iconic laughs. It's one of the reasons I love the animes, because the voice actors do such a great job for characters. It also has great movies. It has... I love Dead End Adventure, Baron Atsumori, Strong World, the 3D Y2, like the time skip movie. I liked Film Z. I liked Film Gold and the Heart of Gold movie that came with it. Stampede was pretty good. And Film Red was awesome. It was controversial, but I loved the singing. The Ado is one of my favorite singers, and, like, I love her music videos that came out with the movie as well. Like, it was all great. I loved everything about it. We also have so many great villains in this series. Like, Buggy was great, like, almost immediately. He was one of, like, the goofy villains. It does so many great different types of characters. Crocodile was a more serious, awesome character. We got Anaru, which was a bit goofy, more serious. And Blackbeard is probably one of our more serious characters, but he's also a little goofy like Luffy still too, and still, like, is a dreamer like Luffy. Dofi was, like, sadistic. This is controversial, but I loved Gecko Boria. I loved that he was, like, a washed up pirate, and I loved his laugh. I loved, honestly, his character design, and I found his powers pretty interesting too. And then, also kind of controversial, I like Caesar, mostly because of the voice actor. Big Mom, I love her design and everything. It's awesome. Katakuri alongside her was probably more of a highlight in that arc, but I liked Big Mom and Wano quite a bit. Kaido was awesome. He was much more serious for the most part, but his drunken Kaido was some of the, like, best shit ever. And then every Navy Admiral we've gotten, which aren't necessarily villains, but they're against our protagonists and alongside the world government, are also some of the greatest characters in the series. There's over 1,000 episodes, and I still want more, and more than 1,000 chapters. Like, it's long, but it's amazing, and in my opinion, the arcs have only been getting better, pretty much. I like most of the arcs in the series, and it's just almost a perfect series, in my opinion.